So my absolute favourite band of all time is Muse, for those who don't know, and they've just released a new album. I don't know if they've released it physically yet, but it's certainly out on Spotify. You can listen to it on Spotify if you have it. And yeah, it's called Will of the People. It's got 10 tracks on it, and I thought I'd just share my thoughts on it. I don't tend to talk about music that much on my channel, but it's something I thought, I just give my thoughts because I love Muse. They're one of the few, but well, probably the only band that I've had such a long-lasting love for. There's been many bands over the years that have come and gone that I've had, fads with and just been all about for a while, and then they just seem to die off a bit. Whereas Muse, I've been a fan since 1999. Every album that comes out, I kind of wonder, is this going to be when my love for them starts to wane? And it never seems to happen. So the new album is called Will of the People, and it is really great. It's got to be said. This might actually be my favourite album. Certainly my favourite album since Black Holes and Revelations, which I think I would probably rate as my number one for the longest time. But this, yeah. I've been listening to this straight for the past 2 weeks since it was released on Spotify, and it's just, every track on this is awesome, except for the last one. So there's the last track, which I will not name because I don't like to swear on my channel. But yeah, we are effing effed. It's just, that kind of stuff grates on my nerves. It doesn't matter who the band is. I always find it somewhat immature, and I just think Muse are better than that. I don't feel like they need to lower themselves to that standard. They're pretty intelligent when it comes to their music and their lyrics. I feel like, yeah. And it's not a song I can listen to in the car when my kids are in there. So it's just, yeah. I just always feel like it's pointless when they've clearly shown that they can challenge you with their music in ways without feeling the need to just F-bomb it all the way through. So that track aside, every other track on this is an absolute blinder. It's all killer, no filler, as far as I'm concerned. People may disagree, but yeah, there's some absolute blinders on here. The title track, Will of the People, being one of them, Kill or Be Killed, Won't Stand Down, and You Make Me Feel Like It's Halloween. Those 4 tracks are just like, they're anthems, really. There's some really great guitar riffs in them, some harder vocals from Matt Bellamy than we've had probably since Absolution, to be honest. Yeah, he's certainly on Won't Stand Down. There's some pretty hardcore vocals in that. It's not, if you're a fan of like heavy metal and that, it'll probably seem quite tame and soft to you. I'm not that big on heavy metal, but as far as Muse go, yeah, I'd say it's much harder rock than they've done for some time. But some really great guitar riffs. So they've probably never sounded more like Queen in some parts of this album, to be honest. I know that comparison's been drawn many times before. I think certainly on Supremacy, things like that, they definitely sound full on Queen. But there's a few times here where you're like, yeah, they definitely sound like Queen here. But there's some real nice moments as well. So the 5th track on the album, Ghosts, How Can I Move On, it's got a really beautiful melody to it. It's a much more sedate song, but it's got some beautiful lyrics in it that you can take in multiple ways, whether it's the loss of a loved one who perhaps has died, or just the loss of a relationship that's broken down. It's, like I say, there's multiple readings there, but it's just a really beautiful melody to it, and it's one that gets lodged in your head. And I find with this album that there's 3 songs on it. There's that one, there's Verona, and Liberation. So those 3 they're much quieter to the rest of the album. They bring the pace down a bit, give you a bit of chance to kind of recover after the heavier bits. But I found myself kind of singing them in my head more than the other stuff. Like when I'm listening to the album, I'm like, yeah, Won't Back Down, Kill or Be Killed. They're the ones that I'm like really rocking out to. Love those tracks. But when I'm not listening to the album and I'm just pottering about the house, in my head, those other three quieter tracks are the ones that I tend to play over more and sing to myself. So, as I say, the anthems are great, but even the stuff that on other bands' albums might be the tracks that you skip over, here that they are really great additions to this 10-track album. I love this album. I think it's absolutely fantastic. My kids love it. That we've all been listening to it in the car. Sans that final song, as I say. That's the beauty of Spotify, is you can tell it to ignore certain tracks. But other than that one track, yeah, my kids love it. My daughter in particular has really been rocking out to it, and she loves. Both of my kids actually really love the second track, Compliance, which is very much a sarcastic look at the way in which society is being controlled by governments and those in power, and it does it in a really great and quite humorous way. But like I say, my kids love that track probably the most on the entire album. But yeah, great album. Muse on absolute fine form. I think there was a couple of tracks on the last album that were a bit of a misstep, although I still really love the last album, it's got to be said. Simulation Theory, great album, but this, even better. 5 out of 5 from me, absolutely no doubt. But yeah, what about you? Have you heard the new album by Muse? And if so, what did you think about it? Let me know down in the comment section below, and until next time, crack in.